All right, everybody. We are excited for another episode of Your Money, Your Purpose. For those that don't know us, right, my name is Billy Zerillo. This is Brian Eckert. We're both financial advisors. And we're coming to you today on Christmas Eve. And so we wanted to wrap up this year with the last 5 personas of the 10 financial personalities that we talked about. And if you missed our last episode, we talked about the first 5. So if you want to learn those, go back and watch the previous episode of those 5. But today we're going to be going over the last 5. They're very interesting. All of them are very interesting and super fun. And, it's really important to understand what your persona is, because it really impacts a lot of your financial decisions. But before we get into that, Brian, how are you doing? How are you doing on this Christmas Eve?
Incredible, Billy. And as you were just talking, about these 10 personas, it is important that we know, and understand ourselves better. But what I love is it also is important that we understand, especially if we're married or we have, an important significant other in our lives, what persona they are. Because, depending on what we are and what they are, we need and want different things, from them and be able to give to them. So I think it's important in many ways, first to understand ourselves, but then to understand how we interact with our loved ones, as we have this, journey in life and, navigate our financial lives to support that. So I'm excited to go over these last 5.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kind of like the 5 love languages, right? You got to understand how your partner talks. And you know what? And you brought this up in the last episode when we talked about this, but it's really important as us as financial advisors to understand how our clients think about money, what their personas are, because it helps us advise them better, right? Because I think for so many years, the industry has just been, hey, come in, we'll learn a little bit about you, but hey, let's just invest your money. Let's do this, right? And this just helps us understand how you think about money so that we can better advise you. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And, what's important to you might not be the same thing that's important to me, and how I want to live my life, and what I like you said, it's almost like a love language. So, we're going to go over these 5 other personas today. And, if you watch the last one, you can go back and watch, the first 5 that we went over are very, very different, and people approach their financial lives in different way and live their lives in different ways. And it's neither, not one is better than the other. It's just understanding how we live and how we make these decisions. And so I'm excited about to go over these last 5, and also excited for people to recognize that's my persona. That's who I am. And I think we said this last time too, is, you will see a part of yourself in many of these. And I know I did that. There were like 2 or 3 that I was like, I'm not sure which one I am. So I was excited to take the actual assessment to see which one it was. So it's not that you're completely one and none of the other 9, but there will be one that kind of rises to the top that you're most like this persona. And that's important for us to understand, because, talking to somebody about their investments, whether they're short-term or long-term, is going to be different based on how they're living, they want to live their lives. So anyway, Are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, I love that. And that was spot on. So let's jump right in. So if you remember the last episode, we talked about, and this is going to be, these 2 sound very similar when you first hear them, but we ended with the financial saver, right? Somebody that's really likes to save money, that's their mentality, is that they're always looking to save, right? How do I save more money? Am I saving the right amount of, percentage of my income on a monthly basis, yearly basis? But we're going to talk about the financial savor-er. And that, if you think about, like, for me, because somebody might be hearing that and it's like, oh, those 2 terms sound very similar. And think about, savoring a meal, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to, you have a nice, a lot of us are going to be having Christmas Eve dinner, right? So you want to savor everything that's on the table, right? And so, me, I always am just a fast eater, so I don't always do this. So, but I'm trying to get better at that because that's a thing that you should, but anyways, so this is the financial savor-er. So this is somebody, Brian, that, sorry, I'm getting to the actual. So this is somebody, Brian, that enjoys and they really believe in enjoying and maximizing the moment that we're in, right? They want to create those memorable experiences. So they prioritize, living in the moment, right? Those are the people that, and, I say this because I believe it, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So you need to enjoy life right now. But sometimes that's at the expense of future goals. So that's kind of where it can hurt you, right? While it's great to, be in the moment, live in the moment, be present, it could also hurt you because you might not be thinking about the future. And so, when the future comes, right, I have plenty of people that I'm sitting down with as clients, and they're like, well, I just want to enjoy today. I don't know if I'm going to be around in 30 years. Well, that's perfectly fine, but there's a better chance that you could be around, right, in the next 30 years. And so you need to put those priorities in place as well. And so it could hurt you because you're not planning for those long-term goals. Where it can help you, though, is that this mindset allows you to kind of enjoy the fruits of your labor in real time, because you're working really hard for your money and you should be able to enjoy it. Just like this time of year, right, where we buy gifts for people, we're going on experiences, or traveling. So you want to experience those moments while you're young and you're healthy and all those types of things, which is great. So you want to make those memories, right? Because you can't take that stuff with you, money, right? When you're gone, it's really those memories. And so some actionable steps that you can take as this persona is that you really got to focus on the balance of living for today while planning for tomorrow. So you can still save a percentage of your income. You can still do those things and still enjoy life. I think people, when you don't have an intentional way of how you're spending your money, this can be, you can be out of balance in that way. Create a budget is a great way, knowing where you're going to put your money. And finally, working with a financial advisor, right, or a financial coach to create a plan that aligns with your desires to live for the moment, but also secures your financial future. So that, Brian, is the financial savor-er.
Yeah, and just a little comment there, Billy. I think this is the one that if you recognize yourself as this one, a lot of people that are this persona are almost afraid to talk with an advisor. And I know years ago, I had an advisor in my life before I became a financial advisor. And, the phone call that I got all the time, Billy, was you need to put more money in your Roth. You need to put more money, into your investments, which was true. It wasn't a false statement, but there were other pressing things in my life that needed to be taken care of now. And I wanted to take care of now. I was, had small children and just, wanted to live life. And I think this is where, the financial coaching aspect that an advisor brings, which you and I both approach our advising in that way, is so important, because we realize that just putting more money in a Roth isn't the answer. The answer is having a better relationship with money and living today, but also planning for the future and having that balance. So that's great. Is it okay if I jump into the next one?
Yeah. It's a little bit different than with the one I just went over, but yeah, let's get into it.
But it's still about the present. So the next persona is the financial giver, and it's exactly what it means. If you recognize yourself as this type of persona, you're going to recognize it very quickly, because you love to give, to donate, to do things for others. And it is great because you're enjoying the present, kind of like the savor-er, but maybe in different ways because you're giving it away. And that is a really good personality trait, to be really giving. Where it can hurt you, and this is probably pretty obvious, is you can give so much that you're putting your own financial situation in detriment. So you might not have enough, you think real time, If you give away all of the money you make in a month, you can't pay your mortgage and you can't pay your own, your own light bill and things like that. But also, if you give away so much that you can't plan for the future, it's the same sort of detriment, because then, if you can't take care of yourself financially, then you're going to be relying on somebody else. So where it can help you is, the feeling that you have when you do give, and the impact that has on other people, and you get to see that real time. And you think about, especially in the season we're in, Billy, about giving, and you even said giving presents. This is where a lot of charities make most of their money for the year, is at the end of the year, as they do these campaigns and send the mailers and things like that. And that makes us feel good. And the giver, it actually makes them feel, they don't give out of guilt, they give because it makes them feel really good. So the actionable steps here are to set boundaries, set a budget for your giving, and be purposeful in who you give to, so that you feel even more fulfilled. But make sure that you're kind of reining in. Giving is great, but not if it's hurting yourself, and then you're getting stressed because of that, because you don't have enough. Another thing is, again, remember to take care of yourself. You can't pour into others from an empty cup, and that goes with your finances too. If you give everything away and you're not taking care of yourself, then you have no more to give, and you've got to make sure that you're doing that. So what you need from others is, you need understanding from those around you about your generosity, and that's part of your course. But you need some general reminders to prioritize your own financial well-being. So again, it's that balance between what really gives you purpose and gives you fulfillment, but then also taking care of yourself. So I think the financial savor-er, who savors life, is living in the present, and the financial giver is as well. And so there's a lot of great things that these two personas bring, but there's also those things that you got to be careful of. And especially in this season, the giver, I think, is most susceptible to overstepping, what should be a boundary for them. Yeah. So they're taking care of themselves. So
yeah, and I love the idea of what you said. One of those actionable steps is setting up a budget. To take that step, one further, if you maybe set, I know a lot of people set up a travel account. Maybe you set up a gift giving account, right? A charitable account where you put money aside, so that when it comes time and you find, because I think most people who are givers, they have very common charities that they give to on a regular basis, but there's always that charity that comes up that you didn't maybe realize. And now you've given some money away. You're like, oh, I really want to give to this charity too. Maybe you set up an account that's marked for those one-off charities, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do if you know that you're a giver, right? If we know that you're a giver, that's one thing that we can help you understand, is like, okay, we understand what you want to help others, but like you were saying, right? I always think about, like, when you're on an airplane and they're like, secure your mask before you secure other people's masks, because you can't help anybody if you're not breathing yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And so the next personality that we're going to go over is the financial protector. So this is an interesting one, because you see money as a way to create peace of mind. You're focused on protecting what you have, which is admirable. It's what we all want to do, right? Especially as you approach retirement, you want to make sure you're protecting the assets that you grew. But there's some places that this can hurt you, right? While your desire for protection is understandable, it can sometimes lead to overcautiousness, right? Being overly cautious about things, especially if you're somebody that doesn't have that first, there's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The foundation is the safety, right? If that need isn't met, you're going to feel like you need to constantly be saving. And so you could be saving into an emergency fund, which is good, right? We want you to have that, but you may be missing out on opportunities for your money to grow for you, right? Where you're not having to work to grow your money. And that's really where the long-term goals get hurt because we're so focused on that first need, right? And so we feel like we need to protect our money. Where it can help you, right? It's excellent, right, at building, the foundation, maintaining financial safety net. Your focus on security ensures that you won't be caught off guard, right? That's the last thing that we want to do is be caught off guard. Like, for instance, like I always share this story, right, where my hot water heater went out, right? And normally in a normal situation, I think the stat that's out there is that most people couldn't handle a $400 emergency, right? That ended up being $1,200 emergency, right? Hot water, 50 gallons of hot water all over the place. Having an emergency fund to take care of that, where you don't have to use a credit card, right, feels empowering, right? But if you're always saving, you don't have that same opportunity for growth. And at the end of the day, you're not going to want to work at some point. So you need to make sure you keep that in mind. So some actionable steps is to explore safe investment options, right? With a financial advisor, find some safer options for you that still allow for growth without sacrificing your sense of security. So that's really where an advisor can come and walk alongside of you and understand what your risk tolerance is, right? That's what we're talking about there. Reevaluate your financial goals, every so often. Again, if you have a financial advisor, maybe it's talking twice a year or 4 times a year, but just to make sure that you're not overly conservative in your approach. And then the last one is to discuss long-term goals and strategies with your advisor, to protect your wealth while still being able to grow it. You can do those two things. It's not all or nothing. I have to protect every dollar, or I have to invest it. I have to risk every dollar that I'm putting out there. I have to have the riskiest investments. You can really make your plan to do both, right? So, Brian, that is the financial protector. What kind of thoughts do you have? I know I could see the wheels turning in your mind when I was talking about those things.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to remember as a protector, it's kind of like the saver, somebody who's saving money and they save, and that's the most important thing. The protector is a lot like them. What's unlike the savers, as the saver makes money, they're putting it in safe places, where the protector not only puts it in safe places, but tends to, like you said, the detriment is to miss opportunities for growth. And I think one of the things that people understand the least, well, they understand it a little bit more with the last couple of years, that inflation eats away our buying power. So if you're a protector and you have all of your money in a very, very safe investment, but it's not growing enough to even keep up with inflation, your buying power is actually, being lessened. So, one of the things, Billy, and I know you do this, is when we have a client who has some assets and they want to protect them, we do that and we put it in very safe environments, but it can still grow. But then we talk to them about, okay, let's take a little sliver of this and put it in more of a growth-oriented place. So it gives them the peace of mind that they have with, very safe investments, but also is not giving up the opportunity for growing for the future. So it's very important. I think this one is the most important persona to have an advisor, help them with a plan so that they're not missing out on opportunities and, missing out on not only keeping up with inflation to keep their buying power stable, but increasing their buying power in the future. So I think that's probably the most important.
Yeah, and I would also add there is just making sure that based on your time horizon, right?
Absolutely.
You need to help. An advisor helps you understand your time horizon, because you still need to grow your money in order to, retire at one point. And so, and like with that strategy you said, like, hey, having some money over here that's protected, we have it protected, right? And then having some money to grow, we need to do both, right? If you think about the best football teams, Brian, right? They play really good offense and they play really good defense, right? The teams that play really good defense, yeah, they might not give up a lot of points, but you're not going to win the game because you can't score anything. And the teams that play way too much offense are going to give up way too many points and probably lose a lot of games. It's the teams that play offense and defense really well that end up winning championships.
Yeah. And like you said, it's important on that time horizon, because we're talking to, a young couple in their, say, mid-30s. Their time horizon is much longer for at least retirement type investments from somebody like me and in their early to mid 50s. That's going to look completely different. And
our strategy, you and I, our strategies are completely different, right?
Yeah,
because
they should be.
Yeah.
they should be. It's not one size fits all. So
yeah.
Okay, so the next persona is the financial minimizer. And again, this one is pretty self-explanatory. A financial minimizer is, living a very simple life. They don't fall into the keeping up with the Joneses mentality and, just buying things. They're not trading in their car every 2 years, and saying, well, I'm in this house, but I want a house that's double the size or triple the size, and they just keep upgrading. That is not the minimizer. The minimizer sees their finances as a means to live a very simple life, to meet their basic needs. So where this can hurt somebody is this minimalist mindset. People, this persona, they tend to not pay attention to the future and long-term planning, because they're like, I'm just living a simple life. And it's a little bit easier to meet the financial obligations in the future, but they also still need to meet those financial obligations in the future. So they tend to ignore that because they're so focused on, I just need a little bit to provide for myself, live a comfortable life, and that's all I want as far as material. So where it can help is you're able to live a fulfilling life without all of these materialistic things, and that's really where it can help. So actionable steps are creating a basic financial plan that really accounts for the future. And I say that because the minimalist really doesn't need a whole lot for today, unlike some of the other personas that we looked at. They're happy with the simple things in life. Another is to focus on long-term security by ensuring that you're prepared for retirement or unexpected financial events. Like you just said, a minimalist might not be putting some money aside for that hot water heater that breaks down, or a car that finally gives up. You still in our society today, unless you live in a big city and you can get public transit and all of those things that come within living in a community like that, or you can walk to everything, car's pretty essential for most people. So being able to have something that's reliable is important. And if you're not saving for that or having a plan for it when that happens, that could be a detriment. So what you need from others is, if you are a minimizer, you need and want the support of people to say, I respect and I'm honoring how you're choosing to live your life. And that's not always easy if you're around people that are more materialistic. So that's really what you need from people, is the support of that, but also the nudging. You need people in your life that are nudging you to say, this is great, I respect that. And as an advisor, when we work with a minimizer, it's great, I respect that. How are you planning for the future? And that's really where their blind spot is there's still going to be a need in the future, and how are you planning for that? And if your partner is a minimizer and you're not, what they need from you again is that support, saying, yes, I not only accept, but I value and I support you in your belief and how you want to approach life. But then also, again, it's that nudging of, I respect this and I honor this in you, and can we look towards the future? And that's really the blind spot of the minimizer, is just no long-term planning to the greatest extent. Is they don't do any long-term planning, or they don't do enough of it, which I mean, a lot of people we meet with, that is something they need to, work on more, is that long-term planning. But especially for a minimizer, that's the most important thing financially that they need to work on, because in the present, they're pretty good because, they have a roof over their heads, and, they've got food on the table, and that's really all. So any thoughts on that one, Billy?
Yeah, the first thought that runs through my head, and again, like we were saying before, and if you hear my dog bark in the background, it's probably a package being delivered, right? Even on Christmas Eve. But the first thought that ran through my head, and right, like you were saying before, we might not fully be to the letter of the description, but when I think about this person, I think about, the fire community. And if you understand the fire community, it's the people that want to retire, very early, right? And so they prioritize that by minimizing the rest of their life. Maybe they don't have a house. Maybe they live in some type of smaller home, right? The tiny homes, the stuff like that. And they really condense their lives so that they can live a minimal life, so that they don't have to work anymore. So they focus all their energy on saving and investing and stuff like that, so they can get to a point where their investments take over their basic needs, right, are met, so to speak.
Yeah, and Billy, I hadn't even thought about that. That's probably the perfect, if we were going to say a community that is, kind of embodies this persona, is the FIRE community. And for those of you that haven't heard of that, it's financially independent, retire early, FIRE community.
Tons of great books out there.
Yeah, and that's what they do. So they look at the material aspects of their life, and they look at minimizing that to maximize their experience and not have to work until they're 65. And some of these people are retiring. And I say retiring, that's when you don't have to work for money, in their late 20s, early 30s, by the time they're 40. And these, sometimes these are people that have young kids, and they've chosen to live a life in a way that their financial obligations are met. But the FIRE community is a great example of, they've done long-term planning. So because they've had to, in order to stop working. So that's a great example, I think, of if we said like a community that's doing it and doing it well, both now and the future, would be the FIRE community. I hadn't even thought of that. That's great.
Yeah. And there's still some, some long-term planning that you still need to be like, just because you retire early in the FIRE community doesn't mean your job's done. You still have to stretch out those investments, right? Because if you're retiring at, let's say 40, right, you could easily have, another 50 years on top of that you have to, make sure that your investments are stretching and that you're doing, so it's not just, hey, I'm retired. So it's still even people that in that community, even once they retire, I see a lot of people in that community, once they retire, they do go to a financial coach, maybe not financial advisor, but they still bring somebody in, because that's a lot of still planning that's involved, taxes, the whole 9 yards. So you still see some people bringing, even though they're like, hey, I can do all the saving on my own, I can invest on my own. It's good to have somebody once you retire, because you need somebody to help you kind of plan those things out, especially on the tax situation there.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to talk about something completely opposite.
and this is the 10th. This is the final one of the 10 personas. But yeah, definitely a lot different than the one we just went over.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about the financial maximizer. So we just talked about the minimizer, so you can probably guess how this one's going to go, right? So you see money as a tool to create a better life, right? You're all about, having the finer things in life, so to speak. You're driven to build wealth, and you focus on those opportunities, right? So like when I think of, if we're going to tie somebody to this community, I like the first thought that comes to my mind is a business owner. Right. They're always thinking about opportunities to grow their business, to grow their wealth, to grow their income. And so they're always looking to the future. Right. Where this can hurt you. Right. So your focus on growing wealth can sometimes lead to overemphasis of success, and this, you can neglect other areas. How many business owners, Brian, have you ran into in your life that neglected other aspects of their life, their relationships, their overall health? Maybe it's their personal well-being, because they're so fixated on, all right, what do I need to do next? How do I grow this? How do I do this? Right? How do I grow my business? How do I get more clients? How do I, get that next investment property? Right? They're always focused on that. And so they can neglect those other things. So where it can help you, though, is that your ambition, right? Your drive that makes you excellent at spotting financial opportunities and growing wealth. You're always looking for ways to maximize your resources so that you can always be improving your financial situation. And like I said, that's a double-edged sword, because you're always focused on the growth. You can sometimes forget about the here and now. And I see a lot of business owners that do that. They forget about, to celebrate the wins, right? They're so focused on what's next that they don't sit back and realize, hey, we're at the end of the year, Brian. Like, there's a lot of business owners that aren't thinking about looking back on the year and saying, look what we accomplished. They're like, you're only as good as your last game, right? So it's like, I can't focus on that. I can't look at those things. I have to be focused on the growth, which is, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. You, as a business owner, you're always thinking about this thing. So what are some things that we can do if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I'm definitely a maximizer, right? What are some actionable steps that you can take? So ensure balance in your life by prioritizing your well-being, because at the end of the day, if you're not prioritizing your relationships and your overall health, yeah, you have a lot of money in the bank, but maybe you pass away a lot sooner, right? We see it all the time where somebody works their entire life, they get to 65, and then 2 years later, they're gone because they didn't prioritize their health, right? They didn't take time to do that. And so, that's something that you want to do, is find as much balance in your life as you possibly can. Some other actionable steps are to set both financial and personal goals. I think, somebody that's a maximizer thinks about only the monetary goals. They think about, hey, growing the business, but they don't think about personal goals. Maybe it's learning a new language. Maybe it's growing closer to your spouse, growing closer to your kids. Maybe it's prioritizing your health, right? Maybe you want to eat healthier. You want to look better at the beach. I don't know what that looks like for you, but if you're always pursuing wealth, that can get overshadowed. All those things can become overshadowed. And then a final actionable tip here for you guys is to work with a financial advisor to create a plan that aligns. We've talked about this constantly, but sometimes it can be hard to think about your own goals and think about the goals that maybe you're not thinking about, and help you align your desires with with your persona, right? Of maximizing wealth, but also, without sacrificing balance in your life. I identify a little bit with this one. When I took the persona exam or test, this is the one that came up for me. Like I said, there's some stuff in here that I resonate with, but there's also some other things that I resonate with, like the Savor-er. So there's a lot of different nuance. But having a discussion with a financial advisor can bring all those things out. So, Brian, when you think about the maximizer, what do you think about?
So, Billy, I would be interested if I could have taken this assessment. It would have been 18 years ago when I left employment and started, my family's first business. It was actually my wife who came to me and said, you need to celebrate more. And I was like, but there's stuff to do, Yeah. I'm like, what's next? And I want people to understand, if you kind of identify with this, it's usually a very driven person. And it's what I think is sometimes misunderstood in people that have this personality is they're greedy. And that's not the case. I would say most of the time that's not the case. This type of persona is what's next. it's okay, what's next and how can I accomplish more? They're driven for that or driven to that. And one of the things that I forget which book it was in, Billy, but this person had gone to a conference to speak, and it was millionaires who were trying to give away their wealth. And he was like, wait a second, I thought it was all about accumulating wealth. And what he found out was these were some of the happiest people. And one of the people that was there, it was a gentleman. He built a successful business, and he felt guilty about that. He was like, I felt guilty about, I do this, I make money, I do it really well. And what he found was by surrounding himself with people that were helping him find purpose in his life, not just, building wealth and creating businesses that created, this cash flow, was how can I use it to better the world? And so he found more fulfillment, and he stopped feeling guilty about being a maximizer, having those opportunities. And he saw it as a way that he could contribute to communities around him by giving that money away in purposeful, responsible ways. And so I think that it's sometimes, and people from the outside looking in might see a maximizer as, oh, they're just greedy, or they're over ambitious, or they don't care about their family. And that's not true. It's just, this is how you're wired, and it's a good thing. I think this is probably the persona that's most misunderstood. It's a good thing. It's just going, okay, you're really good at this and you're driven. Now, how can you maximize your entire life and not just your financial life? And I think that's important. And that's why, Billy, we keep talking about our approach to finance and advising. That's why I think it's so important to find an advisor that isn't just about, growing your assets, but helping you identify, your values and how you want to live your life, and aligning your financial decisions with that, so you live a more purposeful, fulfilling life. I think this is most important for the maximizer.
Yeah. And I think, I think there's something really important that you said, that, and you said it at the beginning, going back to this thought that, we're not going to identify with every aspect of the personality, right? But what is interesting, another thing that you said is that, if I would have went back, if I would have took this exam 18 years ago, right, I would have been a completely different personality. And people need to understand your personality will change over time, because of going back to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, when certain needs are met, when that need is met, right? Like you were just talking about that guy that makes a bunch of money. There's a thing called the law of diminishing return, right? Like you're gonna get to a certain level of income, and it's not gonna matter how, like, we, and Brian and I have talked about this on a personal level. We've talked about, like, all right, if our income got to this level, like if we made $1 more than that income level, it really wouldn't make our lives any better. It would just, it would give us more opportunity to, maybe be a giver and be blessing more people and stuff like that. But I think that's what you need to understand. And that's where our planning process is so interesting, because it's not like we talk about your personality one time, that's it. It's an ongoing thing, right? We're going to have discussions about it throughout the years, because your personality could change over time, right? You could all of a sudden you're a maximizer, and then all of a sudden become really interested in giving, just like that gentleman, right? Like, I need to give this money away, right? And so your plan is going to change over time based on the personality, based off your circumstances, based off the needs that have been met. So I think that's a really important distinction of these personalities.
Yeah. And, Billy, the one word I do try to stay away from is the word change, because nobody likes to change, but I like to say evolve. Like, I don't think that I changed, but I think I evolved because of my, personal experiences, my business experience, my business success and failures and things. So things, they change over time, but it's not like I woke up one day and I went, I don't want to be a maximizer anymore, so I'm changing. It was slowly over time. And I think that's why it's important that, when we work with clients, we talk about a financial statement of purpose, and we revisit that. It's not that we come up with it once and then never
That's
talk
it.
about it again. We check in. Is this still accurate? Do we need to modify this? Are these things still important in your life? Are you still in the phase of life where these things are important, or are they? Do they need to be adjusted? Are they evolving? Are they changing? So a lot of people, when they hear the word change, they think, oh, I need to change. No, it's evolving, it's learning, it's raising your awareness. So anything you want to add, Billy? I know that we're running up on 40 minutes, so I want to try to wrap up, but was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that was perfect. I think I'm going to steal that terminology, evolve instead of change. That's just a better way to think about it. So that was really impactful.
Yeah, so the end result is still the same, but change seems so abrupt and, oh, I have to change, where if you evolve, it's just the things that you bring into your life, the experiences, the knowledge, the awareness, the influence, that you adjust how you're doing things over time. So I like the word evolve rather than change. So anyway, thank you all for joining us today. Billy, I'm so excited that we got through all 10 personas, and now people can, they can categorize themselves into, well, I'm mostly this one. And again, it's not going to be I'm all or nothing. It's not going to be I'm this one and none of the 9 others. But if you would like, we've put together a PDF that has the descriptions that we've talked about here, and we're willing to send that out to you. So if you just want to put in the comments PDF, we'll connect with you, get your email, and send that out to you, and you can read through them, and you might say, yep, this is the one I definitely am. But if you're interested in actually taking the assessment, so that what Billy does, it takes less than 5 minutes. I think I think it was like, I think maybe 5.5 minutes for me the first time, because it's just gut reaction to things. It's not, you don't want to like think about it too hard. You're just answering questions as quickly as they come to you, as quickly as the answers come to you, and then you'll get a report. If you'd like to do that, put in the comments assessment, and we'll know that, okay, you actually want to take the assessment, not just get the PDF. We'll still send the PDF to you too, right, Billy?
Yep.
Like if somebody wants to take the assessment, we'll send that out to them. But what we'll do is we'll get your email and then send you a secure link where you'll be able to go in, take the assessment, and you'll get your report immediately. You'll be able to see, what your, I will say, strongest persona is. I won't say what you are, but what one kind of rises to the top. Because again, you may see yourself in several different ones, but what rises to the top. So, Billy, was there anything else?
No, I mean, the only thing I would add is that, we hope that everybody has a great holiday season. We hope that everybody has a fantastic new year. And speaking of the new year, we will be coming out with more episodes of this podcast. And we will actually be involving some guests as well. So that's going to be really interesting and fun. So make sure that you set your notifications for this. We only do 2 a month. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And subscribing. So no, other than that, Brian, that's the only thing I wanted to talk about.
All right. Well, Billy, thank you so much for your partnership and friendship in this, and as we work together in other areas. And I wish you a Merry Christmas, and Megan, and the happiest New Year's. And I can't wait to, like you said, get to the other content that we're planning on and the guests. And I'm excited for our listeners and watchers that they're going to get a lot out of that as we bring other people in that can provide value to them in a podcast format.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you everybody for watching. Have a great holiday season. We will see you next year. That's that dad joke, right? Because we're like a couple of days away from the new year. So we'll see you next year. So have a good one, guys.
See ya.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the personal opinions of the hosts, not the opinions of Terra Wealth. All content shared is general in nature and should not be considered recommendations. Please consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or an attorney before making any financial decisions. For full disclosures, please visit terrawealth.com/disclosures.